Hello everyone, we are Group 25 and my name is Xuxuan Zhang. Our group members are Haley Howard, Caswell Spencer, Joshua Zhang, and Sydney Sneed. For this project, our topic is that how Apple is dealing with the trade wars between China and the United States. The reason why we chose this topic is because that China is one of the biggest market for Apple, and we want to know how Apple will adjust their management strategies to deal with the ongoing trade war between China and the United States. We learned some useful concepts from this course, and we picked two concepts to analyze the relevant articles that we found. One is contingency planning, and another one is external environment. These two concepts will be explained in the following sections.
Today, nearly all Apple products are labeled "Designed by Apple in California but assembled in China". Hello, my name is Joshua Zhang, and recently there has been a controversy over Apple. And let's move forward on the house name tech brand, and let's review the controversy over Apple's production in China over recent news. Apple is evaluating the expense of moving its estimation of 15 to 30% of its production out of China, where it has been there for almost 20 years. The company will be shifting towards the countries to Southeast Asia, India, and Vietnam as top candidates to replace the powerhouse production country, China. And it is expected to take 18 months minimum to 36 months for moving out of the productions in China. And now let's move on to the Apple business part. Apple ran into a decline of smartphone sales, and recently the smartphone shipments have logged 5 consecutive quarters of year-to-year declines, and Apple have more to lose because, compared to its competitors, iPhone is its primary revenue generator. Apple responded to the slow demand by increasing its price, leveraging higher average sale price, but the unit sales has fell. And clearly, Apple has to count on products and services to cover up the revenue slack and the fall behind. And Apple CFO Luca says the service now accounts for almost one-third of the company gross profits. Apple has indicated that licensing was a major contributor to the sales growth in its service segment last year, while revenue from the services are likely to come from Apple Services revenue. The related margins somewhat are lower, especially for iTunes. As part of a big part of Apple Services business is monthly subscriptions, things like iCloud, Apple Music, and Apple News, that take money each month from the hardware that's already out there. Now let's move on to the G20 meeting between USA and China. Before the meeting occurred in Osaka, Japan, Trump was planning to increase the tariffs on Chinese goods if the Chinese President Xi Jinping didn't meet the US President at the G20 summit. But after the G20 summit meeting has happened, the US and China have agreed to resume trade talks, easing the tension that had contributed to global economic slowdown.
Joshua explained there are a lot of conflicts arising out of the trade war between the United States and China, and a lot of these things are affecting Apple Company and their procedures. First, I would like to explain some definitions that will help in the understanding of concept 1. The first concept that we're going to be discussing is mainly focused on contingency planning, which is the determination of alternative courses of action to be taken if an intended plan is unexpectedly disrupted or rendered inappropriate. An important distinction is the difference between a reactive change and a planned change. A reactive change is a change that takes place in the midst of what's happening and in reaction to a certain event happening. And a planned change is done in a timely and structured fashion in anticipation of a future event occurring. CEO Tim Cook admitted in a recent interview that he did not anticipate his company being targeted in the ways that they have in the case that China did escalate the trade war. As a result of this, he did not have any contingency planning in place, no plan changes but instead has been implementing some reactive changes to the effects that have faced his company. Some of these include moving more production to India and also considering other countries such as Indonesia and Malaysia and Vietnam for future production in the case that the tensions with China do not go back to the way they were before. In recent years, Apple has just basically completely ignored supply chain management and put all of their eggs into one basket with all of their high-end production in China. If Apple had had more contingency planning for a change in the global economy, it is much more likely there could be a smooth transition to another designated location. If operations management was increased, which is management to improve the efficiency of production of products or services in a company, there would be a much smoother transition as well. But since they've had low operations management, it's going to take a long time for a country such as India to take on the jobs that China has previously took on for Apple.
Apple must now find ways to fight this oncoming battle due to their lack of proactive planning. There are several ways that managers can combat this trade war without suffering from financial turmoil. A major step in the right direction would be asserting the necessity of Apple products, especially in China. They can achieve this by creating all new products, inflating the demand for Apple, and pushing the Chinese government to make political moves to benefit Apple's position in the economy. This, however, would be extremely difficult considering Chinese competitors are often ahead of Apple technologies in the terms of technology, innovation, and ability. Apple has been attempting to expand its product line with the introduction of AirPods, charging mats, advanced AR technology in its newest phones, bringing back and upgrading the iPod Touch, and updating the MacBook Pro to better serve professional users. Although these types of technologies have been available to Chinese markets through other companies, Apple loyalists will have less of a reason to abandon the brand with these updated technologies. Another area that Apple managers could invest into heavily is the utilization of upcoming 5G network technologies. By getting ahead of competitors in this realm, they would be increasing their market share, which in turn would lower the power of the taxes placed on their products. This new 5G technology would mean expeditious loading screens, immediate application downloads, and general internet speeds incomparable to anything we've ever experienced before. Inserting itself into this market would give Apple an edge, and bringing the technology to the Chinese economy would give them more leverage. One move that Apple is already making began as planned change and not reactive change, a positive move within the company's operations management. The services side of Apple has been consistently growing with a steady decline of physical Apple products. Between the App Store, licensing revenue from Siri, and subscription-based services such as Apple Music, Apple has really begun to diversify the source of its revenue. A lot of investment has been made into its upcoming Netflix competitor with movie-budget TV shows and expensive movies. Apple is really focusing on curating its own content to put onto its new media streaming platform. This change can be seen in Apple's quarterly reports. During the first quarter of 2018, products reported $51 billion, while products in the first quarter of 2019 only earned $46.6 billion. Meanwhile, the services revenue increased from $9.9 billion in the first quarter of 2018 to $11.5 billion in the first quarter of 2019. This proves Apple's efforts in improving company services have been met with good return.
Okay, so basically for concept 2, we're talking about the trade wars with China and just talking about the external environment. So it was shown that the global economy was influenced by the trade war, and because of this, Trump has increased tariffs to 25%, which has been a really big deal and a huge chatter all around the United States because of this. And Apple has kept its China-manufactured iPhones off the list of Chinese imports. Donald Trump has also threatened Beijing with new tariffs on about $300 billion worth of Chinese goods, and that's an act that would escalate tensions dramatically while also levying tax on Apple's most profitable products. All in all, based off this though, Apple is ready for war and says they will have a different way to fight in this trade war. So the Cupertino, California-based company's primary manufacturing partner has enough capacity to make all iPhones bound for the U.S. outside of China, if necessary, according to a senior executive from Precision Industry. The Taiwanese contract manufacturer now makes most of the smartphones in the Chinese mainland. Foxconn is the America's giant, most important manufacturing partner,
and it will fully support Apple if it needs to adjust its production as the US-Chinese trade spat gets grimmer and more unpredictable. Going off of this, Foxconn has also agreed to build a 13,000 worker facility in Wisconsin in exchange for more than $4.5 billion in government incentives. But that project has ever since come under criticism for low-paying jobs, sudden dismissals, and ever-changing goals. But it will also start making new networking and server products for the US market by the end of next year.
In conclusion, we know about the recent news about Apple's production in China, and then after knowing the definitions about contingency planning and the external environment, we learn more about how it works in the trade war between China and the US. For concept 1, from the articles, it was shown that Apple needs to implement the contingency planning and for the trade war between China and the US to fight against the outgoing trade war. Although Apple has been attempting to extend their product line, it also needs to improve their operation management and prepares backup plans for a possible change in the global economy. For concept 2, from the articles, it was shown that global economy was influenced by the trade war, and because the Donald Trump increased tariffs to 25%, Apple has to keep its China manufactured iPhones off the list of Chinese imports. All in all, Apple is ready for this war and ready have different plans